This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of October 2020, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, UHURU men in shock as Ruto storms Jubilee HQ. In the Standard, UHURU in Paris as Ruto occupies Jubilee House. And in the Star, I have forgiven my wives. Kids, says Kibore. Let us begin with the Daily Nation. UHURU, while you are away, some things are happening.
Some things indeed. I think, as we know, yesterday the Deputy President sort of stormed Jubilee headquarters yesterday with 20 MPs and senators allied to the Tanga faction.
Yes.
And so the Daily Nation is essentially just outlining us, telling us that the party vice chairman, David Murade, has accused the DP of taking advantage of the party leader's absence, the president. And I think the timing, of course, is quite questionable. The president leaves and, you know, the DP really takes on this role of acting president in full force. But I think the most recent update has been that Tuju has made a statement. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Raphael Tuju, Jubilee Secretary General, has banned Ruto from ever entering Jubilee headquarters. But more importantly, he has said that the National Management Committee of Jubilee Party has recommended for the removal of DP Ruto as Deputy Party Leader.
Is this not drastic?
It is fantastic. Look, this man is, this Deputy President of ours, I think he's a little bit restless.
Was he not baiting us? And I see a little bit of Trump politics at play here. He's doing things that deliberately will annoy the guys at Jubilee, the Uhuru Kenyatta allied side. But I'm like, how realistic was an overthrow in the first place? Just by occupying a boardroom?
No, look. Then why did he not go there while the president was around? He should have gone there while the president was around.
And that's what I'm saying, he's doing Trump politics.
But
trying to intentionally irritate.
And I think if we're being honest, or at least if I want to be honest, I think that we have to admit some brilliance in his tactics, right? I think you have to look at it as what GK is saying. He wants to look like a hero, right? And in doing so, he confuses the people. I think that if you're just to ask the layperson, what is wrong with the deputy president going to his own party headquarters? Technically, there's absolutely nothing wrong, but it's the optics of it, is it not?
Yes, and I think he's building into that David and Goliath narrative, the idea that the system is against me, the powers that be, the dynasties are against me, and this just plays into it. And I think in this move, Tuju has just been baited.
No, I think it's okay. I mean, being baited to what end? Look, he already is a hero, for goodness sake.
Who is a hero?
Ruto,
the deputy president.
Yes, because he was riding on a wheelbarrow. But look, I don't think it is wise what he's doing, because the first thing of him being recommended for removal as deputy party leader is a precursor to impeachment.
Oh man, you've been saying this the whole year.
And let me tell you, it's going to happen. And the reason William Ruto is such a mystique right now is because he just has the powers and the symbols of state.
You're impeaching him on what grounds?
Once those gross insubordination, number one, and those are grounds in the Constitution, by the way. Once he doesn't have these powers around him, these state powers and GSU all around him, then he just becomes Raia. And let's see if you win an election as Raia.
Well, yesterday we saw that the DP perhaps has backup plans. We saw about how many parties?
Like 450.
23 parties have provisionally been registered, and maybe those are the backup plans should this all go to hell.
But Chua, I think you're talking about being wise.
I wish he runs on all 450 of them. Let's see whether he'll be president.
You know what? My thing is, I'm not convinced. Hosting a meeting does not a coup make.
I mean, he went there with 30 MPs from his side of the divide, and these are fellows who are known to actually insult the president.
Okay, hold on. I think we need to just look at this critically, just for one moment.
Yes.
I think that if we're going to talk about Trumpian style politics, I think we need to also look at how he operates and how people respond to him. Logic does not work. And I think a word of advice may be to change tactics in how we deal with the deputy president. Kicking him out of the party only continues to strengthens that that aura that he wants to have.
Haven't we all been saying here? The best strategy is always the obvious strategy. The best way to have William to contain him is to impeach him.
Yeah,
impeach him, he will grow smaller in size.
Can I pivot to what the president is actually doing in France?
Yes.
Is that something we can?
Absolutely. Uhuru Kenyatta caused some buzz in Paris yesterday. He addressed, and he was a chief guest at a ceremony. Macron was hosting.
Macron.
Macaroni, the French president. And President Uhuru Kenyatta went there for some deals. And the Daily Nation reported that Uhuru Kenyatta had gone to ask for 180 billion shilling loan, which is nonsense. What actually happened was this. There was a 101.3 billion euro partnership. It's called Public-Private
Partnership, PPP.
Yes, for a French investor to actually build a road somewhere. It's called the Narok-Mao Summit. Worth about 1.3 billion euros. And this model is what we have seen in other countries like Senegal, where a company comes, builds a road, and then creates the toll, puts tolls all around, and that's how they get back their money. And of course, with a little bit of interest. And I think that's what we're going to see in Kenya.
Yeah, but of course the worst part of it all is that once the Daily Nation said it was a loan, that narrative took off. And I think that now trying to convince Kenyans otherwise is almost a lost cause, which is so unfortunate. How can our dear president travel, halfway across the world, and he's received with more respect and more dignity by his own country? Yeah, by foreigners and in his own country. It's such a shame.
Because the people who sit on Kimathi Street are golden to current.
And I think there's something there about the difference between being a leader and a politician.
Absolutely.
DP right now seems to be pandering for the next 2 years for the next election.
Absolutely.
And we have the president who is looking forward and saying
where we
wants good things.
And Prof says there's a difference between a politician and a leader. A politician thinks of the next election, and the leader thinks of the next generation.
There you go, to the next generation. Well, we have a 3-part criteria that we will use to break down the headlines. We will ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? We can take the Daily Nation and the Standard together.
Yes.
Uhuru's men were in shock. I don't know why. Standard, Uhuru in Paris as Ruto occupies Jubilee House.
Before we decide,
they are topical. Let's hear about the Star.
This juicy story in the Star.
Yes.
So, in the Star, I have forgiven my wives and my kids. So this is about 86-year-old Jackson Kiprotich Kibore, and he has 26 children.
Absolutely.
Including 16 boys. The girls don't matter, apparently, according to the Star. But he has made headlines for a long time, because of his polygamy, but also his immense wealth. He's about worth 6 billion shillings. And he started from humble beginnings. In 1963, with 35,000 shillings, he bought 1,200 acres in Uasin Gishu. So he's since then built his empire, grown, and he's into farming and things like that. And the Star makes sure to mention that in February this year, he actually was the keynote speaker for the men's conference.
Really?
And he had the men-only conference in which he told, men how to sort of carry their lives.
Is that advice that you want to take?
He successfully divorced his third wife about 8 years ago.
Successfully.
He's now married to his fourth wife, who is half his age, and they have 4 children. The Star also tells us how he sued his sons for illegally taking over more than 700 acres of his land. But he has since forgiven them. I think that's the key thing there. But also politically, the Star tells us how he's a staunch supporter of ODM leader Raila Odinga. He believes that the time has come for Raila to take his place as a statesman. And he has met the deputy president, and he cautions and advises that on leadership, DP must go slow and be wise if he wants to lead Kenya. And so, there we go. Timing is everything in politics. The interesting thing he points out is his darkest point in his life was post-election violence, when he was accused of being linked to incitement. He says that he denies these charges. He says he's not a tribalist. And he narrated his captivating life. And lastly, he said that despite his wealth, he would still like to receive the 2,000 bob monthly stipend that elderly receive from the government, because he believes he's earned his right.
What a legend. What a legend.
Billionaires don't get where they are by giving money away.
Exactly. And also, there's interesting stories that everyone should read it about how he confronted Kanu and asked Kanu to name his successor. And Moi told him to come back. He was dragged to State House and he was on his knees and made to apologize. So interesting story there.
But the thing for me is that the star honestly lives in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
There's a house on fire and the star is talking about something else.
But you would know why. They have a Nona.
I think we should give the star a winning.
Yes. Yeah, for a little bit of weekend fun. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
Let's quickly move to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country.
Absolutely.
Where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Yes, you have Ndula caricature of Infotrack CEO Angela Ambido. And she has cotton buds. She's on a ladder and she's taking wax away from an MP's ears. And the cotton buds there have been labeled opinion polls. And I think the context, and she's saying, oops, the context of this is MPs have come out to say that their recent ranking of how they've performed in their constituencies was doctored. And some MPs could have paid bribes to this Infotrack
to improve their ranking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know about this cartoon.
Quite a boring one.
Don't like it.
Okay, so in the standard, what do we have?
Yes. Gado, yes, a drawing of Jubilee House. I don't think that's how it looks, but anyway, it's in. There's so much acrimony there. It's on fire. Toilets are being busted out the roof. Windows are broken. It's a total mess. And that's Jubilee. I think the context of this is the acrimony we are seeing right now in Jubilee.
I mean, I don't think... anyway.
I don't think this one... that one toss as well.
It is not a house on fire yet.
No.
We can toss the standard. In the star, we have Magoha. Yeah. And he's between the hands of a clock. This looks like a repetition of something we've seen Ozone do before. And it says, okay, it's time to reopen schools now. And I think it's just the confusion that Magoha has encountered in the last couple of weeks between him saying schools should be open in October and the president reversing that very decision.
Yeah.
I don't see any funny or humorous cartoons today.
So losing cartoon?
All of them.
All of them are losing cartoons?
All of them.
Okay, they are all losing cartoons. And now for our final thought, but before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And now our final thought, it is inspired by a book entitled Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't, by Simon Sinek.
Nice, a Fifth Estate classic.
Yes.
Before we get there, can I give a summary?
Go ahead.
So on Monday, this week, we've been looking at leadership and we've drawn from various books that we've liked and come across. So on Monday, we looked at Tribal Business School, Lessons in Business Survival and Success from the Ultimate Survivors by Joe Owen, where we learnt about survival and success from people who have survived hundreds of years in the most hostile environments in the world. And it was structured around 7 simple lessons. 1, kill or cooperate, change or die, respect, responsibility, courage and contribution. 4, role models in the role of books and courses. And 5, moving from knowing what to knowing how, the tacit versus explicit knowledge. And 6, we looked at information management, trusting the messenger and not the message, and never trusting a spreadsheet. And 7, we looked at culture and values. On Tuesday, we did the Blue Ocean Strategy, how to create uncontested market space and make the competition irrelevant, by Chan Kim and Renee Mabon. Where we saw how since the dawn of the industrial age, companies have engaged in head-to-head competition in search of sustained profitable growth. And the Blue Ocean Strategy doesn't ask companies to avoid competition, rather it urges companies not to let competition drive their strategies. Rather than trying to avoid the competition, it asks companies to stop looking to the competition. Instead, value innovate and let the competition worry about you. On Wednesday, we moved to the book of Exodus in the Bible, the story of Moses. And we read that this could have been a story of a company that had a slave mentality and how Moses did the biggest organizational turnaround in the world. There was a group of 1 million or so people who had for generations seen themselves as slaves and a lower form of life within the mighty Egyptian nation. And through a very strong value-based leadership, Moses turned them into a proud people who went on to build a nation and influence culture today. We saw how the 10 Commandments could be a series of values that could be used as a leadership tool to unite the people. On Thursday, we did Good to Great, Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't by Jim Collins. And here, using tough benchmarks, Collins and his research team identified a set of elite companies that made the leap to great. And sustained those results for at least 15 years. And the book describes how companies transition from being good companies to great companies and how most companies fail. And so we learned some really valuable lessons there. And it's Friday, and we're looking at why leaders eat last.
Yeah, one of our favorites. So Simon Sinek believes that leadership isn't just about managing numbers or managing results, but it's about helping people thrive and find meaning in their work. And he says that when leaders take care of their people, the numbers, the results, the outputs will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But he says, unfortunately, many leaders and organizations seem to have forgotten or lost sight of this fundamental truth. So in this book, he explains where we've gone wrong, and he puts out an urgent call for real leaders to step up and make a positive difference. So in determining why, a company's why, and I think if you remember, his first book is called Start With Why.
Yeah.
And he says that a company needs to understand their why before they start thinking about the how or the what. And so he says, yes, find your why. But he said that's only the beginning. He says the next step is figuring out how to get people on board with that why. How do you get people to buy into it?
Yeah.
And he says, how do you inspire deep trust and commitment between the leader and the company or between the colleagues themselves? And he cites the Marine Corps for having found a way to build that culture where men and women are willing to risk their lives because they know that the other person would do the same for them.
Yeah.
And he uses lots of examples from the military and combat. And he says so because lessons are more obvious in life and death situations. When it's between life and death, you have to learn something.
Yeah.
And he says that those same principles can be applied through business and leadership as well. So whether it's an effective platoon in the middle of a war or a successful company in a booming market, they all share one thing. Leaders are meant to provide cover from above for the people on the ground so that they can then look after each other.
Yes.
And in the book he says, a quote I really liked, leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush towards the danger. And when we feel sure that they will keep us safe, we will march behind them and work tirelessly. And so to kind of illustrate that, he talks about this thing he calls the circle of safety. And he says that the circle of safety is when leadership creates a team culture that is free of danger between colleagues. And you foster a sense of belonging. And he says without the circle of safety, people spend too much energy and time trying to protect themselves from each other. You end up having friendly fire situations. And so he talks about these chemicals: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, which are the chemicals of progress. Those are the things that make you feel happy. And he says that if you create a circle of safety, you will be encouraging those chemicals. And the opposite is when you have the chemical cortisol, which is a stress chemical, and it creates that flight or fight situation. And so he says that our bodies don't understand which to use, but if our leaders can cultivate a culture of those better chemicals, we'll end up working better. So I guess the question is, and I think Turam will answer that, how do you create a culture or a circle of safety?
So he gives a story of a lion and 4 oxen. Now the story goes, a lion used to prowl about a field in which 4 oxen used to dwell. Now many a time he tried to attack them, but whenever he came near, they turned their tails to one another, so that whichever way he approached, this is a lion, he was met by the horns of one of them. At last, however, the 4 ngombes had a quarrel among themselves, and each went off to pasture alone in separate corners of the field. Eventually, the lion attacked them one by one and ate all 4 of them. Maybe this is the case of Gema, but I won't go there.
Thank God.
His point is this: without a circle of safety, people are forced to spend too much time and energy protecting themselves from each other. You know, the power of the Spartan army did not come from the sharpness of their spears. It came from their strength, of their shields. Losing one's shield in battle was considered the single greatest crime a Spartan could commit. And the reason was simple. A warrior carries a helmet and breastplate for his own protection, but his shield for the safety of the whole line.
Wow.
Tafakari hayo.
I like that story too, really do. So I looked at a part of the book towards the end where he talks about the foxhole test. So a foxhole in military jargon is the dugout you would have, and you would sit in there as you're fighting or you're in battle.
Absolutely.
And you would want to be in this hole with people who you trust and people who are competent. You wouldn't just want to be there with people who aren't going to have your back. So he goes to interview a colonel in the Marine Corps, and the colonel was late for his meeting, and he asked, oh, what happened? And he says, well, there was an incident with a Marine candidate. And so Cynic asks what happened. And he says, the candidate fell asleep while he was on watch. And so Cynic says, well, you guys are stricter than I thought. This guy fell asleep, but you're not really in combat, you're just in training. And you're somewhere in the woods of Virginia, so really, like, you're not in danger. No danger. Why would this be enough to end his career? And the colonel says it has nothing to do with his falling asleep. When we asked him about it, he denied it and denied it again and denied it repeatedly. It was only when we showed him proof that he had actually slept that he then confirmed that he had made a mistake. Now, he went on to explain that in the Marine Corps, trust and integrity are considered matters of life and death. If this would-be leader were in charge of a platoon of Marines, and those Marines couldn't trust his decision-making or information, then they would fail to pull together as a team. Now, Marine Corps, the world over, are known for their effectiveness as a group. And the reason they work as a group is because not only are they strong, fearless, and able to do all those things, they trust each other, and they believe that without a doubt, the Marine to the left and to the right of you will have your back and will do what needs to be done regardless of rank. Now, this is the reason why that first Marine was fired. Because then Cynic goes on to ask, has this ever happened before? And he says, yes, it has happened. A Marine has fallen asleep, but the other Marine owns up to his action very quickly. He is given the appropriate punishment, and then they move on. They build trust in that way. And so this is the same, he says, in other organizations as well. So even if even one's decisions, if they're not matters of life and death in your normal day-to-day business, when ordinary people suspect that their leaders are saying things to make themselves either look better or to avoid humiliation or accountability, the trust in them falters. And this is a natural response. And so you don't want to be a leader who's always bending the truth, because our subconscious minds will be like, we don't want to be in a foxhole with them, right? So it was very interesting. I loved this book. And the idea here is that leadership doesn't mean that you have to be right all the time, but it's knowing that you made a mistake, taking responsibility for it quickly, and building trust.
I have your back. I got your back.
I have yours too.
Do you think that the deputy president has the president's back?
Absolutely.
They currently cannot be in a foxhole together. And also, in ending, being part of the unit, being in the Marine Corps or an organization, means putting others before yourself. And knowing that they would do the same from you, but also drawing strength from each other. That's what makes teams sort of pull together and work. So on a day where we had a winning headline from the Star and losing cartoons across the board from all the papers, I want to leave you with this. To be in charge of someone is a special gift. Like a parent, a leader is responsible for developing their potential. We should treat our employees as if they are family. When the going gets tough at home, we see it through thick and thin, together. In work, we should sacrifice the numbers to save the people, not vice versa. When you stand behind your people, they stand behind you. If you grow your people, you grow your numbers. So have a lovely weekend. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Prime Feature, and Star Times.